So, hello everybody. This is Steven again. So today I just wanted to talk about why I consider myself as a paleoconservative. So a lot of the stuff that people have been saying about this ideology, about conservatism in general, it's just there's been misconceptions surrounding this particular ideology like paleoconservatism. So just to kind of give you a brief rundown of where I'm at with my journey in conservatism. So, if you don't know, I've been first red-pilled into conservatism in the summer of 2016. I got red-pilled by this man named Alex Jones and Infowars. He's the one that kind of just jump-started the journey into conservatism and to supporting Donald Trump and the MAGA populist agenda. And so after that was when I decided I supported Donald Trump against Hillary Clinton. And then fast forward, but sometime in the middle of this year, actually, I began to do some research into the paleoconservative ideology. And that time, I was kind of just watching some mainstream, conservatives that I listened and watched to few of the mainstream conservatives that some people that most of the young conservatives like to listen to, Charlie Kirk, Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens. But what really got me into the paleoconservative ideology is one of the reasons being I was just currently frustrated with the failures of the current conservative movement to absolutely conserve anything. It's if we look at the modern conservative movement today, it's what has actually been conserved? What values are they conserving at the moment? It's if I look at a lot of the mainstream conservative organizations like Turning Point USA, Young America's Foundation, or to a lesser extent Prager University, what values have been conserved? And it's not to say I'm not gonna personally bash upon the people who work for these organizations. I know they have their own journey to walk on, or I'm not gonna bash on a lot of the conservatives my age who have first gotten into conservatism through these organizations. But if we look at the bigger picture here, it's in regards to the culture, what has been conserved? They like to talk about, we gotta have limited government, or we need to fight against socialism, conserve the free market capitalism, lowering taxes, more freedom. And I also like to ask, is that what really conservatism is all about? Is conservatism really just about having a lesser government, having just a free market economy? What about, why don't you also focus on these social issues? And that's also why I have a problem with these moderate Republicans or these center-right conservatives, because for so many years, a lot of the modern conservatives, they've sold our nation out. They've either knowingly or just unknowingly compromised some of the core conservative values to the left for the sake of we gotta get more people on our side. We gotta we have to make sure that we also appeal to Democrats. Bro, how can you call yourself conservative and say you want to try and appeal to liberals by compromising some of our core values? You want to compromise the core conservative value on abortion, on marriage? What's the point? And another reason why I decided to be more paleoconservative is I used to work at a job at a warehouse, and one of my former coworkers, he red-pilled me on a lot of things. At first it was I didn't necessarily want to take a bit because I felt some of the stuff he says is this even right? I'm not sure that's how conservatives are supposed to. But if you look at the bigger picture, it's like I said, if we look at the bigger picture, we've seen the perversion of the LGBTQ agenda. We've seen critical race theory, this anti-white doctrine that's been spreading in our country's education system. All of it, it's just pervasive. And like, so far, most of the people in the conservative movement haven't done a damn thing to actually fight against this never-ending, pervasive agenda that the left has been putting on like, you know, has been imposing upon like the American society. And so it's like, when I think about conservatism, I think about tradition. Conservatism is mainly about preserving the traditional values that made America great in the first place. It's like, we believe in a moral America. We as conservatives should be fighting for a moral and a traditional America, you know? You know, we believe that, you know, God should be in the center of our government. And two, we gotta fight for strong Christian values. Like, America, like, this country was founded upon Christianity. And so like a few months later, like, I've started looking into like, you know, some of the big names of like paleoconservatism. I've looked into like a little bit of like, you know, Pat Buchanan, you know, the guy who basically launched this whole paleoconservative ideology into the mainstream. He was like one of the people that, you know, that a lot of the establishment conservatives tried to silence, but absolutely failed. Like, his ideas just really like just brought it to the mainstream. Even though like, sadly, Pat Buchanan is not like our president yet. He basically, what he did was he woke up a lot of people to the corruption surrounding our government in both the Republican and the Democratic parties. And so now what we're seeing here, it's like the Democratic Party and much of the GOP is just like, they've gotten sort of into the more like liberal direction. Like, Democrats are obviously very, very liberal, like leftist and everything. But much of the GOP, it's like they're not doing any better. It's like the saying goes, like, much of the modern GOP is basically just progressives just driving the speed limit, or like progressives on a speed break. And so it was like, another reason why paleoconservatism is valid, because we need to fight against the rising tide of globalism. We need to fight as conservatives against the rising tide of globalism and multiculturalism that these like elites, these globalist elites, they're trying to impose like these multiculturalism policies upon America and the West. Like, in an ideal society, they might think, oh, if we just have like, you know, more multiculturalism, it's like, you know, this world would be great. Everybody would live in harmony, right? Well, it turns out it's not really the case, because if you keep on bringing in, you know, different people to like, you know, another country, if the government officials keep on bringing like people who have like, you know, different values and different way of life into our country, it's like, are we going to expect the same country? Like, and that goes into another thing that I wanted to address. It's the intense mass immigration. And other times, you know, people say like, you know, it's kind of weird. I know some of the things, you know, that people say to me like, oh, but Steven, are you not an immigrant yourself? Like, oh, like, okay, I get it, you know, but I'm first generation. I was born in this country. I was born to people who are like originally immigrants from South Korea, but who are now citizens in the United States. But the thing that gets me about like, you know, mass immigration is that like, there are a lot of like these immigrants in our own country. They don't want to assimilate. They want to like still live like, oh, like they still want to live like they're still living in the countries that they originally came from, instead of like working hard to assimilate to and abiding by our Constitution and abiding by our American values. And that's what really triggers me. And it's like, no, if you are in America, you are supposed to abide by our constitutional rules. You need to abide by American values. It'd be like if I just go to France and if I go to France just for the purpose of living there, I can't just continually live like, like I'm still living in America. No, I gotta like assimilate to the French culture. I gotta abide by the values of the French people. And this is the same thing for like people who want to come to America. And like a lot of these immigrants, like those that don't want to abide by American values, it's like they just want to, like they end up like voting for a party that really doesn't care about our values. They end up voting for a party that wants to do away with a lot of our constitutional values. Because statistically speaking, if we look at voting demographics, we see like, Hispanic immigrants, majority of them tend to vote Democrat. Majority of these Hispanic of immigrants would rather not support freedom of speech in our country. They rather prefer gun control laws. And it's gotten really just like, it's pretty dramatic. It's pretty insane to me, to be honest. It's like, we gotta lower down the immigration numbers, especially, the case for lowering down like immigration numbers is more valid now that we have seen what Biden is doing across the southern border. Like Biden is absolutely negligent on restricting immigration at the southern border, and he's just letting in all these illegals just start flooding in. And so it's like, I believe that we need to end mass immigration. And so just to kind of like wrap things up, the reason why I decided to be more of a paleoconservative, because I want to conserve our country's values. I want to conserve the traditional values that made America great in the first place. I want to conserve the patriotism, the love for our country. I want to preserve the tradition of honoring God. Good. I want to preserve Christ, the logos of the universe. Jesus Christ is Lord. He is King. And I believe wholeheartedly that America was founded upon the values of Christianity, and we need to get back into this. And I also want to preserve the traditional nuclear family, mother, father, children. And also it's like, I want the people working in our government in Washington, D.C., I want them to start putting America and its people first, instead of just selling our interest out to other countries who care absolutely nothing about us. And that's a whole nother thing with why I'm not a neocon or one of these neoconservatives like George Bush, is because they put our country through endless international affairs just for no good reason. It's like, I see no reason for us to get involved a lot in international affairs. I want us to be focusing on solving the domestic issues that we are facing here at home first, before we focus on other countries. I believe in America first. And that's the kind of agenda that Donald Trump ran on. And, but then Trump himself, he slowly got compromised, because a lot of the people that were in his administration, in his party, they don't want to fully advance the MAGA agenda. It's like, no, they still want to focus on the same establishment talking points. But I, as a young conservative, I don't want that. I want people leading our country to put America and its people first. Period. And so if you have more questions, you have questions that you want to ask me about paleoconservatism or the paleoconservatism ideology, please leave them in the comments below. I would love to answer your questions. I would be very happy to discuss more of why I became a paleoconservative. And I just want to also say to you, I hope y'all had an amazing Thanksgiving break. I know it's pretty late for me to say this, but I hope y'all had an amazing Thanksgiving week. And I want to say God bless you all, and God bless America.